Which comes first, character or plot? That's the question that I'm going to answer in this edition of What's Up Wednesday for July 17th, 2024. But before I get to that, let me just point you to my Saturday broadsheet that just came out this past Saturday with all my writing updates in it. You'll find what I'm working on, how far I've gotten in it, things that are posting on my blog or Ream or Patreon, books that are on sale, and there are a lot of them, but only in one place. So Smashwords is having a sale right now, and 50% off all my books at Smashwords, so you might want to go look that up. And then there is a free read on Ream and Patreon, so you'll find out what that book is if you read the Saturday broadsheet. Okay. Then, at the very end of each Saturday broadsheet, there's usually a story vignette. This month, I started writing a story that I'm planning to write in pieces and share each month in my Saturday broadsheet. So that story is about Harriet and the Colonel, and they are characters from Oxford Cottage. Colonel Fitzwilliam, of course, is Darcy's cousin. Harriet is the lady he loves, and his good friend's sister, and yet his good friend has not approved of him as a suitor for his sister. So it's kind of where they're sitting at the beginning of this story that I am writing. Now, I had hoped that last month in June I shared a music room meeting, which was Harriet and the Colonel meeting secretly in a music room. And I had hoped to make that into a novelette, just extend that story, but I couldn't find a way with where they were to get to a happily ever after if, you know, music room meeting starts before Oxford Cottage, and then you've got Oxford Cottage, and in Oxford Cottage, the Colonel is still not an acceptable suitor for the guy's sister, Harriet. So how do I go from the music room meeting to Oxford Cottage and write a story in between there, and have a happy ending? You know, like a satisfactorily happy ever after or happy for now type of ending. And I couldn't figure one out. So what I'm doing instead is I'm going to start after the music room meeting. It's like a year after the music room meeting. And then I'm going to go through the time period that would be Oxford Cottage and over to the other side of Oxford Cottage, and there'll be a happy resolution. I don't know yet if that'll be happy forever or if it'll be a happy for now. We'll find that out as we go, and I will only know it probably a little bit before you guys will, because I am a discovery writer and I don't actually have an outline. I have a few notes on a piece of paper. I have ideas of where I want to go. The characters and I have had some discussions, but we'll see how things progress. And I think, okay, there is one thing that has changed from the Saturday broadsheet, and that is the fact that I have just finished chapter 10 of How to Marry an Accomplished Lady Without Losing One's Mind. So that would be the only update since Saturday as far as things go. Writing life news. Okay, then anything else that I need to tell you? I don't think so. So let's get to the answer to that question. What comes first for me? Is it the characters or the plot? As you can maybe tell from the things that I've told you already, it's the characters. I start with the characters, whether it's a Jane Austen fan fiction or an original Sweet Regency romance or a contemporary Christian romance, which I write under a different pen name. I start with the characters, and I might have some ideas about plot, but I don't know the plot until we have gotten through the story. I have ideas of what I want to have happen in the plot. I know where I would like things to go, but when I get to a point and something happens in the story, what I think maybe should happen won't fit with the character that's being developed. It would have to be forced. It wouldn't be their natural response. It wouldn't even be a semi-natural response sometimes. So it really comes down to the character. So I start with the character, and the characters really do drive the story for me. It's all about getting to know them. It's all about getting to understand who they are and what their desires are and what their fears are and all of those things about them. So that's my answer for that question. It's not very long, it's not very detailed, but it is characters, and characters drive my story, and I do need to know who they are before I can really figure out what the plot is. And then the hard part with being a discovery writer is that I might know who I think the characters are when I set out to write the story, but as the action develops, I'll discover that, oh, they're not quite who I thought they were. Oh, I didn't realize they had that fear hanging in the back of their minds. That makes sense. And one example that I'm going to give that's very clear in my mind, there is a scene in Master of Longbourn, which is a sequel to Mr. Darcy's Comfort. It's part of my Dash of Darcy and Companions collection, which currently is in KU. So if you're looking for it, it's only on Amazon. In that story, Mr. Collins, a very different sort of Mr. Collins, is the main character, the romantic hero. Yeah, Mr. Collins and romantic hero are not words you usually put together too often, but they are in this case. And he's come to this point in the story. It's really kind of the breaking point where is he going to continue this quest that he's on, or is he going to revert to who he's always been told he was rather than being who he really is? And he says something there, like, I can't remember the exact words, but he says something about, he doesn't, he just can't do this, that sort of thing. And I wrote those words coming out of his mouth, and it took me, I think, a week before I could move on with the story, because I was like, well, why did he say that? Like, that doesn't seem right, because he's been doing all these other things in the story, and what he just said there kind of goes against what he's been doing. So has he misspoken? And I tried different ways of, getting the story to progress, but it was like, no, this is what he meant. This is what the character meant. It was coming out from who he was. And when I finally figured out, oh, I get it, and it was like this, that was his defining moment. It's where he still was kind of seeing himself as this person he's always been told he was, and where he had to be able to move past that in order to fulfill his quest, his goals, what he wanted to achieve had to come past that point. So when I write the stories, the characters really do drive it, and sometimes they surprise me, and I don't expect them to be who they are. Even when I set out, I have an inkling, but I don't have the full picture of who they are until we get done with the story. So that is part of my process of writing and how I go about it. Characters come first. I hope you have a great rest of the week, and that you find time to read at least one book before the week is over. Anyway, till next time, happy reading. Bye.